Here we are with the Shetland people. Tell me, who wants to be the main talker? How about you right there? I'm just going to ask you quickly where we are and why all the Shetland people are here.
We're at Lanark Agricultural Centre in Scotland, and we're all here together because it's a Shetland Sheep Society sale of registered pedigree Shetland sheep.
But it's also a show, right?
It's a show as well. The show started this morning about 8 o'clock, and we've done all our showing. We've had a champion and a reserve come forward and best fleece. So they've all been selected and they're back in the pens.
All right, now is that something that works really, really well because you have a show, and then I'm assuming that whoever buys after that is going to get the price of the show price, right? First ribbon, second
ideally,
ribbon?
Yes. Hopefully, yes.
And I think you're the one that is getting best offers now, right? You've done quite well in the shows.
I judged.
Okay.
I was the judge today.
You were the judge. All right.
Yes.
So who won the ribbon today?
Mr. Hitwell, Archie.
I did.
Archie won champion. His
sheep,
his ram.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me about this ram of yours. This is where you get to glow.
You see, this is the wrong person because I'm just the handler. No, he's a two-shear. He's homebred, so we bred him, and his lines are all from our stock. And the reason we're selling him today is because we've run out of things that we can use him on, and so we need to move him on.
Yeah, that's one of the big problems, isn't it? The bottlenecks that you get in your genetic lines when you need new stock. But this is a fairly small sheep, right, in terms of the populations that it has. It's not like you're going to be able to go everywhere and get genetic material, right?
Correct.
How many Shetlands do you think there are in the United Kingdom? I know I put you on the spot with that, but
no, there's over 3,000 registered Shetlands annually, so there's probably tens of thousands of Shetlands in the UK, but not all of them are registered in pedigree, which is what our society is promoting. We want to preserve the genetic lines and understand what we've got in the population. So, and these sales are really important for spreading the gene pool. We've got people from all over Scotland here today selling sheep, so breeders can buy from each other as well as people who maybe don't have any pedigree sheep at the moment but can come and get some registered stock.
Okay, now this sheep comes from a little island in the north,
yes.
Right? Anybody want to talk a little bit about the history of this? All right, if you would introduce yourself really quickly and tell us a little bit about the history of the Shetland sheep.
Hello, my name's Hazel Syme. I'm one of the inspection team here today, and the Shetland Isles are an archipelago in the north of Scotland. They have an indigenous breed of sheep called Shetland sheep, which are famed for their wool, amongst other things, and they are the basis of the famous Fair Isle Shetland woolen industry. From lace shawls, one ply, spun, super fine, to the wonderful Fair Isle garments that you see throughout the world, and their quality cannot be beaten. It was wool from a Shetland sheep that was worn by the first ascent, the Hillary and Hunt expedition that went up to the top of Everest.
So it's way far in the north, and it's in a very isolated area. Tell me a little bit about the history as far as the Viking end of things is concerned. They came over in a small boat, is that correct?
Well, I think they came over in several very large boats. But the history of the Northern Isles, which is Shetland and Orkney, but Shetland in particular, they came from Scotland, they came from Europe. They were the Picts, they were the Iron Age, and then the Vikings came over and managed to take over the whole of the islands and put their stamp on what happened in Shetland. And Shetland was very much part of Norway up until, John, this is a quiz question, 14...
Yeah, middle of 1500s, I would have said.
Yeah, it was paid as a dowry.
To one of the queens, or one of the dowries, was it Queen Margaret, who came and married the Scottish king.
12th century.
And, and she was... Pardon?
12th century.
12th century, right. And it was paid as a dowry so it was handed from Norway to Scotland.
I'm getting an excellent history lesson here. Yes, who owns the land and everything on it at some point, and it heavily influences whether this is considered a Scottish sheep or more of a Norwegian sheep or an African sheep or whatever the sheep happens to be that we all talk about. The ownership of the land itself might heavily influence where it came from and where it goes, correct?
Well, Shetland Sheeps are short-tailed breed, and they come from the northern short-tailed group of sheep, which now help me out here, girls and boys. It's Shetlands, Icelandic, the North Ronaldsay, the Manx Lochtan, the Hebridean, the Soy, and one other. Castle
Morkmore, I saw those.
Yeah. So that was a group that came through northern Scandinavia, and they came down with the Viking Trail actually, because they came to the Northern Isles, they went to the Western Isles of Scotland, they went down to the Isle of Man. So very much part of the Viking heritage that came. But they've been isolated islands, so they've really grown and developed into their own individual breeds, even though they may have had a common ancestry. And the colours in Shetland are just magnificent. It's the most colourful breed in the whole of...
Beautiful.
It's got 11 main colours and
Beautiful.
Over 30 markings and patterns. The variability is amazing.
And they're a tiny sheep. They're not a huge animal insofar as some of the other production breeds are concerned. So they're easily, I would assume they're easier to manage than a large sheep.
Yes, yeah.
And that if you're on a small island, the resources are limited. And so therefore this sheep has evolved to kind of get along really well on very little. Would that be correct?
Absolutely. I mean, the sheep that you see now are well fed. They're on good grassland down here, and they probably get some supplementary feeding at some points of the year. But up in Shetland, Suzanne and I were up there in the summer for 2 weeks, and there are places where they just live off the ground, and they might get seen 2 or 3 times a year. And that's all they get. And they survive, and they produce fantastic wool, and they only produce a single lamb on that grazing, but they do ever so well.
So how, when you have an animal that's from that specific area and yet has spread all across Scotland and all across the UK, and frankly in the United States we have them as well. So how do you say to yourself, okay, this is what a Shetland is? Because it's changed over time. As you mentioned, the Picts came in and brought them, and then the Vikings might put their stamp on it, as you said. So as this sheep kind of evolves over time, does it stay the same in Scotland or in America, or does it change a little bit?
Well, in 1925, the Shetlanders formed a Shetland flock book, and they set their own breed standard in 1927, and that's the breed standard that we adhere to. So there will be a variety of Shetlands throughout the UK, but our society hold to the 1927 breed standard.
Now, does your society also help you not only with registrations, but in marketing the products for this animal, or do you have to kind of do that on your own? Anybody want to speak to marketing?
Mixter Maxter.
I'm sorry?
A Mixter Maxter, a bit of both.
A little bit of both?
Yeah, they do help us a lot to market with, like having a sale. The show here, it could just be a sale of Shetland sheep, but the Shetland Sheep Society put their name on it, so it becomes it's for registered pedigree stock. So they do help a lot in the marketing. But again, you have to go out and find your own market as well.
Okay. Now, I would, while I have you all here, I would like to if you would just introduce yourself. Could be just your first name if you want, or if you want to say which farm, if you have farm names that you come from, that would be lovely.
Susan Russell. I run the Wood Park flock of Shetland sheep. I've been breeding since the year 2000, just before foot and mouth hit.
And how many do you have?
Oh, very few now. I'm down to 10 breeding ewes and this year's ewe lambs and a couple of tup lambs. That's all I've got, just a small flock.
All right, and what area of the country?
I'm from Ayrshire, which is the west coast of Scotland, and it's quite wet most of the year.
Okay.
But they do well in our land.
All right, and you, sir?
Yeah, I'm John Stephen. I have the Rosebank flock of Shetlands. I am just southwest of Edinburgh, up in the Pentland Hills. We lamb about 80 to 90 Shetland ewes amongst 1 or 2 other breeds, and we have at this point in time probably about 250 Shetlands on the farm at the moment that I need to. I run all the lambs through the winter to next year, and then have a strategy of what to sell and what to keep.
All right, and you?
Hello, my name is Hazel Syme. I have the Rothas flock of maybe 8 ewes and a couple of followers, and I'm in the Kingdom of Fife. And I work along with my friend Rena Douglas of the Drum flock, who has bred quite good Shetlands for maybe 35 years now. And my interest is wool and colour.
And what area of the country?
Fife, near St
Where is
Andrews.
Fife located for people that
Near
might
St
not
Andrews. It's between Edinburgh and Teesside and Dundee.
know? Right.
I'm Kate Sharp and I have the Ewingston flock of Shetlands and I've been breeding since 1987 and I'm down in East Lothian, south of Edinburgh.
A lot of wind there, if I'm not mistaken.
Quite windy, yes.
Yes.
We're at the base of the Lanark Hills, the foot of the Lanark Hills. So we're about 650 feet above sea level, so we're quite windy and cold.
And how many do you have?
I'm running on the land just now, we've got 120 Shetlands.
Okay.
So, and I bred, I think it was about 28 Shetlands last year that I put to the ram. And we've got all the lambs and stuff, but in total there's about 100 odd sheep.
Peace. All right.
I'm Jennifer, and I've got the Hunter's Flock and the Bicky Bank Flock, and I run about 40 Shetlands with my best friend Mary Perry, who has the Low Barn Flock and the Port Harmony Flock. I've had Shetlands now for about 10 years, and we're down in Carlisle in Cumbria, so just across the Scottish border, and absolutely love them, and they're multi-purpose uses, and I'm really into my wool processing as well. So
Right.
Hi, I'm Suzanne. I have the Bray flock of sheep. I've been breeding for the last 26 years, and I focus primarily on solid sheep, so Murets, whites and black. Very small number, but predominantly Muret. And I'm in central Scotland. I'm only a few miles away from Edinburgh Airport, actually, so that's where you'll find me.
Hi, I'm Archie Hipwell. With my wife Fiona, we have the Of Cairney flock, and we concentrate on catmoggets, grey and fawn, and also some whites now. The predominant feature for us is wool and the fine fleece, and we breed for that, and also we sell meat. And we're based near Kinross, which is about 20 miles north of Edinburgh.
Everybody has the central point of Edinburgh. That's
Yep.
the thing by all things are which are measured.
Absolutely.
And you?
Hi, I'm Livy. I run the Clugston flock. I started when I was 12 with 3 sheep, and I'm now 21 and I run 40 yows at the moment. I breed all sorts of colours. I just got in because I had the pocket money to spare, and I wanted to follow my dad's footsteps and raise my own breed of sheep. So yeah, it's been a fun ride and we're still going.
All right. Now, you are the only person that mentioned that you breed for meat. I don't know. Does anybody else breed for meat here?
Yep.
Okay, so this is sort of an interesting thing in Britain where wool used to be the only and the powerhouse economic factor here in sheep. It is no longer, is my understanding. So meat is sort of an economic necessity for many sheep breeders. Is it the same with something like a Shetland that is, I mean, the wool is it in a Shetland, right? It's the fine spinner's wool. Would you like to speak to that?
The meat also is very,
Right.
very high quality, very fine, not very fatty, and it's superior. It has a different taste to standard lamb. And if you keep it to hog it, 2-season lamb, it's almost gamey. So it almost has a gamey flavour to it.
So now, being a person that has other agricultural interests as well, I'm going to mention the Highland cattle, and they say that has a different characteristic to the meat because of the area it comes from and because of the amount of hair that they have. That they marble differently, they marble uniformly, they don't put that big cap on them. And they say it does add to a nutritional component where it's a healthier meat. Would you think that the Shetland are the same?
Yeah. Yes, and they're also, because they're a native breed, they are not like the meat manufacturing commercial breeds, which put on lots and lots of meat very, very fast. It's very fast grown, but it lacks maturity and flavour. So a native breed is much slower maturing and you get more flavour. Also with Shetlands, and I don't know whether my colleagues will agree, you can't force feed Shetlands because they just don't eat it. They'll survive on this sort of ground for a week quite happily. They're not bothered. And if you do give them too much nice, really rich grass, it doesn't do for them. So they'll mature at a steady rate in any case, no matter what you do with them.
So that's one thing that I've heard from the people that have flocks in the States, is that a uniformity of nutrition is very important in terms of the quality of the wool, because you can tell a bump if there was a drought, or a bump, a little ding in the quality of wool at a certain layer if there was too much rain and the grass didn't have as much nutrient value in it. Is it the same with something like this? I don't know. Is this it sounds strange to call this not a long wool, because it really does have long wool. It's just not the same as like a Leicester, where that has a really long staple and it's all uniform. Is this a long wool sheep?
No, it shouldn't be.
Shouldn't be, but they're very fluffy.
In the States, you do get, when I judged in the States, you do get Shetland sheep with long wool, but over here the breed standard is 3 to 5 inches, or 3 to 4 inches. It's not, in the States you're talking about 8 inches long, which is not, that's away from the breed standard, certainly. And going back to Archie, when he was talking about the meat, I think Shetlands is one of the most versatile animals, because you have this lovely, as you call smaller, it is a smaller type sheep, but it's not the smallest sheep, but it's small. But you've got lovely wool from it, you've got lovely meat from it. They're very sociable sheep, so they're ideal for smallholders, as opposed to a commercial breed as well. And the meat, that when you're killing them, they're lovely to eat, the meat itself. And I use the wool in my knitwear business, and they produce lovely wool. So there's such a very versatile, if you were only to have one sheep, for a multi-purpose sheep, the Shetland sheep has to be the breed to go for. And some of them the males have horns, the females are mainly polled, so they're ideal on a smallholder, where you've got maybe a horse, pony, some goats. They're ideal to mix with other sheep. And some of them depends on the lines, but they're not as aggressive as some horns. They're not as placid as some sheep, like your heavier weight sheep that just with no horns, but they're certainly not as aggressive as a lot of other sheep as well. So they're very social type sheep, easy to handle, easy to halter train, and they'll do anything for a biscuit usually. Yeah.
Well, now I know you all need to get back in here in a minute, and you've got 1 o'clock. He's starting right now. Okay, so you're going to have your auction, and you're going to sell off your sheep, and I appreciate the time that you've taken with me here today. If people want to find all of you, tell me a little bit about the organizational website, the name, and the social media.
www.shetland-sheep.org.uk, and if they check out the website, they can find our contact details there, and we'd love to have them.
And find any maybe products from the local farms.
Yeah, we have a
and the people that-
marketplace section on the website where they can find products and sheep and lots of things to look at in there as well. So have a look and get in contact. That'd be great.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming
Thank
out of the
you.
building. What a fabulous, phenomenal display of sheep that there were in there. But the Shetlands are beautiful.
Thank you.
So thank you all so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.